Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough. I'm Dr. Debi Silber, and today's guest is the #1 New York Times bestselling author, recipient of the National Jefferson Award, Dave Pelzer. Dave embodies a spirit, humor, and wit. As a child, his resilience enabled him to overcome extreme life-threatening obstacles. As an adult, Dave's inspirational work has encouraged countless organizations and millions of individuals to recommit and remain steadfast to their personal convictions. Dave has experienced a truly extraordinary life. At age 12, Dave was rescued and placed in a series of foster homes until he enlisted in the U.S. Air Force at age 18. He was determined to better himself. Dave is the recipient of the 2005 National Jefferson Award. Other alumni include Colin Powell and Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Dave's first book, A Child Called It, continues to have worldwide impact as a catalyst for social change, with an upcoming A Child Called It movie in pre-production. Before you listen to this episode, do yourself a favor and close down any distractions, put your phone away, and make sure you eliminate anything that's going to distract you from this conversation. You're about to meet the most resilient man I know, the one and only Dave Pelzer, who originally became known for his #1 New York Times bestselling book, A Child Called It. Want to hear a story of resilience and strength? Here we go. Oh my goodness, everybody. This is such an honor today because we have Dave Pelzer with us. And if you haven't read the book, A Child Called It, it will change your life. And I was absolutely thrilled that he said yes to be here with us today. And I'm just gonna welcome him, and we're just gonna dive right in. So welcome, Dave.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks. Thank you again so much for just being a part of this show. It's all about healing from betrayal, and certainly what you experienced qualifies for extreme betrayal. Can you just share your story?
Well, in a nutshell, my goodness, I was one of the most severely abused children in the state of California back in the day. I think I was rescued in like 1970, 73. And there was just a long-term situation where there was alcoholism involved and a lot of hatred and issues and denial. And I think, like you said, too, betrayal. Because we all know in the first 4 years of a child's life, those are the maternal bonding years. And that's when the abuse started. It was little at the time. I thought I was a bad child. I was programmed that I was always doing something bad, but it was never identified. And then it was target child selection, which there was 3 siblings at the time. I was selected as the target child for my mother, who had a lot of issues from her past, to vent her rage. And it just got so ridiculous where I would swallow ammonia in front of my father, who was a firefighter. And he would just stand there, drunk like my mother, and basically say, "Irva, what has he done now? He tried to steal food again. Well, Irva, if you only fed him some food, maybe he wouldn't steal so much." Or when I was stabbed about just a half-inch below the heart, it was about age 8, my mother, who was a former nurse, refused to take me in for medical treatment for fear of exposing the secret that everybody basically knew about anyway. So to me, my story was never about abuse, but more so on, resilience and just surviving any way you can. Because the bottom line is, you go through a divorce, or I'm a fire captain. I rescued a guy out of a sports car yesterday. Accidents happen, or there's disasters that happen, or there's medical situations, and sometimes you just do what you have to do to better yourself.
And there's something about betrayal that just hurts to the core because it's intentional. When there's a tragic accident, let's say, or we lose someone we love, we don't question the love. We mourn the loss, but betrayal it's because it's intentional that really just absolutely rocks us. So from this young age, then, what did you make of it? What did you say to yourself about what was going on?
In the beginning, again, as a child, you think in childlike ways. I mean, I thought parents were hatched, not born, and parents were godlike, and parents are perfect. So the programming in the beginning was, what am I doing wrong? How can I fix it? And, what can I do to redeem myself? Or what can I do to chase that person's approval? And again, put that family unit back together. And it wasn't until age 8 when my mother was premeditated to burn my arm over a gas stove for about 56 seconds. And you just look in her eyes, she's gleaming with pleasure. And I was so scared about her having me lay down on this gas stove. I just manipulated the situation by having her hit me rather than burn me. And about maybe 5-10 minutes later, my brother came home early from a Boy Scout meeting. My mother threw me down in the basement because that's where I lived. And I thought to myself, gosh, if I can feel my arm, I'm alive, which means I'm not dead, which means, oh my God, I won. And that's when I kind of formulated that plan, kind of like Gone with the Wind. As God's my witness, I never go hungry again. And everybody has those moments, those turning point moments, whether you're Rocky Balboa or, you're lost somewhere or you're going through something that you have to do something for yourself. And again, with psychology too, Debi, is the first 8 to 10 years is 90% of your psychological makeup. So if I had to take that turn, it was the perfect time in my life. Because after that, I could not stop my exterior world, but now I can start stealing food. I would study kinesiology and learn how to roll up into a ball so when she hit me, it wouldn't hurt so much. I would develop plans to somehow better my little situation, as minute as it was.
And I guess it was all about survival at that point. How did you relate or interact with your siblings?
None. In the beginning, my mother would, the brothers would ask, Ron and Stan would say, hey, what's wrong with David? He's bad. I have to discipline him. So don't be bad because I'll discipline you. Okay. And then the next stage, it's like, well, better you than me. Sorry. I'm sorry. You're in that POW camp, but I don't want to be in that camp. And then after a while, you develop that bullying complex. If she can do this, I can beat him up too. So this is a slow process. It started, I think, about age 4. And then when I was finally rescued at age 12. So that's a good 8 solid years, and it got to be, it was normal. It was completely normal.
Wow. That's an insane thing to call normal. So now let's talk about your father's role in this.
Yeah. Well, my father was a very gentle man, not a gentleman, but a gentle man. And the dynamic, he was a firefighter in San Francisco back in the days where they didn't have Scott packs. They used to drink on the job or smoke out during fires and stuff. He was a pretty, hardcore guy. And part of the situation, because, I used to do a lot of work in psychology, and you go to colleges and talk about these things. And he was raised, back in the 30s, per se, that men brought home the bacon. And it's going to sound sexist, but we have to tell the truth. Women took care of the house and the kids. That's it. Dad took out the trash. Dad would paint the house. Dad would mow the grass. So those were his, responsibilities. So when he would leave for 24 hours out of whack and see me in the corner or see me in the basement, what has he done now, Irva? She would say something. Okay, I guess that's all right. But then again, when he saw me swallowing ammonia, I think I was about 8 or 9. This thing is, I'm already living in the basement. It's almost like it's like an anaconda effect. You pick up the little cute snake and you pet it or you do something like that, and it squeezes you. Like, oh my God, it's too late. And plus, he was an alcoholic as well. So his role is termed as the passive observer. They know what's going on, or they realize the magnitude of what's going on, but they're too afraid of wrecking the relationship. It can be a hostage situation with the kid or the other siblings as well. So it's a very, and we see this a lot. There's usually one, alpha abuser, and the weaker one is like, well, I didn't want to upset the balance, so I was thinking of the other kids. I didn't want her yelling or beating up at me, because my mother was rather small, but she was ferocious. Oh my God.
Wow. So it's virtually impossible not to have physical symptoms, of course, mental and emotional, showing up with this level of treatment. What did you notice? What physical things were showing up for you? How did it manifest itself?
Well, I think it was a slow dynamic because, again, this is a very learned behavior. There's an old saying in psychology that hurt people will hurt people. And my mother was raised in the 1930s in Salt Lake City, Utah. Now, for any young ladies listening under 40, you're not even going to understand that. If you're over 45, guess what? You just turned ghost white. Because in the 30s, you have to think about it. The country's in a state of depression. There's not a lot of jobs. In Utah, it's men, dogs, and 1,000 million miles below that, there's women. Women basically didn't have any rights. Women were mistreated. And my mom, my grandmother, we were told that our grandfather had died years and years and years ago. And my grandmother was very independent, and she was one of the first female principals of a school in Salt Lake City, Utah. Now, the truth of the matter was my grandparents divorced, and that was scandalous. So my grandmother raised 2 children and low depression on one income. And there's no doubt in my mind she abused my mom and my uncle. No doubt. Mm-hmm. And then she was raised, this didn't happen, denial, shut it down, put it in a box, marry Mr. Man, pop out a few kids, and it never happened. So you have this cancer within you, and sooner or later, Mount Vesuvius is going to erupt per se. So it could have been stress from the marriage. My mother, I think, had 3 kids in less than 4 years. And then you have to think about back in the day in the late 50s, early 60s, we didn't talk about postpartum depression. We didn't talk about anything that ladies or new mothers would need, for goodness sakes. Mm-hmm. Then you couple that with alcoholism. There's all these little, stones in your backpack, and it's not like the one big thing. It's always these small little ripples.
And that is such a toxic recipe. So here you are, you're removed from the home. How did you begin to heal from all of this?
Well, I think it's kind of a lifetime process. It's like once you have cancer, you always live the rest of your life fighting cancer and, making sure your body's okay, your mindset's okay. I'm embarrassed because I was 12 years old when I was rescued. I used to go to school and I wasn't allowed to bathe. I smelled so rancid. Kids would vomit because I had that yellow, waxy skin, broken black flame glasses, hunched over, stuttered terribly. So imagine being born and raised on Mars, and then boom, you're beamed on the planet Earth. I don't hold the language, or I don't know the language, or speak the currency, or hold the currency, in a sense. And a lot of people don't give credit to social services and foster care, and that's just plain sad. But it was those people that, I was always a pretty good kid. But, I was kind of into everything. Like, oh my God, what's this? Oh my God, what's that? Oh my God, that tastes great. I just had to slow down and learn. I remember when I was 14 and one of my foster mothers had me stand in front of a mirror, and I hated looking at myself. So I can learn A, B, C, D at age 14, or tying my shoes. So I was quite the foreigner. And I remember I had one social worker I had a little crush on. She was like 6 foot 18 inches, and she had long blonde hair. And we're in this meeting, and again, I was 14, been in foster care for about a year and a half. And this psychiatrist, a specialist of the county, said because of the traumatic abuse, because I was isolated so much, because I wasn't fitting in, adjusting well, there was no chance. By the time I would be 18, I'd be dead or in prison, and that's a fact, Jack, because I'm the doctor. And my social worker nudged me, and she said something that resonated. If you can survive all that you did, young man, without any help, without any training, then I expect nothing but greatness from you.
Oh, wow.
So you have these people. I always say when it comes to speaking, whether you're in love or trying to make up from an argument, or you got something to say to your uncle before he passes away, is just speak with purity of the heart. You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
And I always knew on the inside, I thought I was like Superman. On the outside, I'm clumsy and I don't talk, and I'm the family slave. I'm not allowed to eat the family. I eat out of garbage cans. I'm mocked at school, but on the inside, I'm super, super strong. So that really solidified that for me. And what I was able to do is use that in junior high. I would work 40 hours a week. High school, I'd work 90 hours a week because I didn't want to be homeless once I was 18. So you just kind of apply yourself. And I've been able to do that most of my life. If I didn't speak very well, I would study language. I would do comedy and do perfect impersonations. I had no coordination, but years later, I flew for the United States Air Force. So it's always these little things.
Yeah. So Dave, what's so shocking and so inspirational is that you had this internal strength, because it's so easy to see how the spirit can be so broken with just such treatment.
To interrupt you, ma'am, and this is so important. Children are resilient, period. They think in terms of black and white. You put a child into a room, and they're going to cry or go crazy a little bit, but eventually they're going to make a fort. They'll find food. They will try to do something. It's the adults that have a lot of issues. Who's going to rescue me? My cell phone's going dead. I'm going to yell at somebody. I'm going to sue somebody. So everything happened. It's almost like this perfect timeline. And again, I have to say this, it was a lot of luck. A lot of luck.
And so now here you are, you're in school. You're looking at the other kids and trying to interact with the other kids. What did you make of it about how they were living and how you were living? Like, did it even make sense to you of what was going on in your life?
I never interact with kids because I was always the outsider, whether I was in foster care, because there was a stigma about being a foster kid and you don't have nice clothes or whatever. But I do remember before I was rescued, it was the first and only time I flashed. I mean, I hated, and I don't like saying the H word, I hated Fridays because that meant for me no food until Monday when I used to steal food at the schoolyard. And every 40 minutes, if my mother wasn't blacked out, passed out, I would receive attention time, whether I had to sit outside, my hands and knees in the fog of Northern California, or just doing chores or just getting the crap kicked out of me. I remember one time, the joke was Pelzer, Schmelzer, and they throw little spit balls at me and spit wads and stuff like that. And I'm embarrassed to say this. I remember just standing up, and I felt like I had those Iron Man gloves on. I was like shooting them death rays. And I actually said, "You are so lucky. You have a bed. You have clean sheets. You get to bathe. You have food. You are loved. You think you're so tough? Walk 1 minute in my shoes." I remember I just ran out the door, ran out the schoolroom, and I slammed it so hard I thought the glass above it was going to break. And I was so embarrassed because right before I was rescued, I started to shut down. I wasn't sleeping. My parents were separated. And I knew my mom was slowly getting tired of playing this game that everybody started to realize. So again, being rescued was at the right time, right place as well. But overall, I never interacted, especially in foster care, because I saw, kids getting high or getting drunk or chasing the boys, chasing the girls, and doing stuff like that. And I thought to myself, you guys are so stupid. Okay, I work. So I was always, mentally, I was always ahead. Physically, I was behind. I mean, I didn't hit puberty, I think, till like maybe 19 or 20, because my body was just so underdeveloped.
And you know what it reminds me of, like when you're the only sober one at the party when everyone's drunk. Like you see it so clearly, and I imagine you're looking at the ridiculousness of this childhood behavior of some of these kids, and they have no idea what you were experiencing and what real challenges could be.
Well, yeah, but then again, too, the other side of that coin is, I mean, kids are kids, teenagers are teenagers. They do stupid things, and they're supposed to go out and date. And back in my day, used to cruise around, or you joyrided in cars. I mean, that was normal. I mean, I was just everything about me was different. And again, a little bit of that Superman effect. I just thought it was, because I knew at age 18 they kicked you out of foster care, and I didn't want to be homeless like my father. So I thought, man, if I can make $1,000, I'll be rich. Okay, if I can make $5,000, I'll be like super rich. Because you're always thinking about, Dr. Abrams Maslow's theory of survival. Money equals food.
Right. So now here you are, you're surviving, you're 18. Take us through that time now. So once you were able to survive.
I had a few jobs, and my fantasy was to be a firefighter like my father. And I joined the armed forces. And of course, the armed forces did not want a high school foster kid dropout. It's like, oh my God. So it took me 6 months to join the Air Force. I mean, every day for 6 months, shining shoes and showing up and doing stuff like that. And in their wisdom, they made me a cook, a swamp cook. Like if you had a DUI or did drugs or beat up somebody before you got kicked out, you cooked in the swamps of Florida, like the film Papillon. So I just sucked it up, because that's all I do. I suck it up pretty well. And I took some college classes and, went to paramilitary training. And then I finally got a job flying for the Air Force. And it was a lot of luck with that, because I used to study planes. In psychology, people or children that were abused, they fantasize. They want to fly away from danger or fly to a safety zone, hence Superman adventures, those type of things. And I always studied this one super secret SR-71 Blackbird, and I just landed a job there, and everything started to roll for me. Everything. It's like it's like you fail 1,000 times, and then you get that one break, and you really appreciate it. And again, it's the most amazing job in the enlisted Air Force, to be an aircrew member, boom operator for this one weapon system. And I was very proud of that.
It's amazing. How did it feel the first time you flew?
Oh, it's like anything, your first time, it's like you're scared and you can't enjoy it. Uh-huh. But what I did is I showed up to this one base before my training and would get on these flights, and I was with instructors, and they put me back in the boom pod. I'd mid every fuel, and I knew how to run the checklist. So by the time I got to training, I was like, oh my God, this is easy. But you got to think fast in that job. You got to communicate well, problem solve. And it was a job for me because I'm one of those beautiful mind type people. I'm always thinking, like as a fire captain, when I get toned out, within 5 seconds of being toned out, I figure, okay, I'm going to need this piece of equipment. I need these people here. Boom, 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 boom. I call that going to Mars. So before you go to Mars, you got to think about all the equipment you need before you go to the moon, and then bring that backwards. But that was a good job for me. And then I started volunteering in child abuse prevention and being a counselor in juvenile hall. And, I got a few awards, and then we, wrote the book, A Child Called It, which was basically a thank you letter from my teachers. And I'm proud to say that the book was given to my teachers on the exact day of my 20th anniversary of my rescue.
Oh, wow.
The exact day. And they got the first copies. My son got the second copy. And I'll say this, the book was printed. It wasn't published. It was printed in 93. We finally got it published in 95. And then in 1997, 2 years later, it made the New York Times list. And then it was on the list for over 6 years. The number one book in the world. The average stay in the New York Times, 3 to 4 weeks. It was on there for 6 years.
Why do you think it made the impact that it made?
Because to me, it's simple. I'm a movie buff. I mean, I can tell. I remember studying Orson Welles' Citizen Kane, 2,700 pages, shot for shot, frame for frame, every string of music. And what I write is I'm just now starting to write book 9 now. But when I write, there's a certain situation, there's a POV, a point of view. And to me, A Child Called It was never about abuse. It's about this little kid's resilience. And it's told by the kid's eyes. Because in A Child Called It, there's not one word, to my knowledge, that's over 3 syllables. Because kids, 8-year-old boys, don't think that way. That's why the book is very fast-paced. It's very graphic, because that's how little boys think. And then when I wrote the other part of the trilogy, the Star Wars saga, we call it, as the character progressed mentally, the vernacular would progress as well, in a sense. So it was told, it was weird. We would have little girls as young as 8 or 10 to 80 read it.
Wow.
Boys, 12 to maybe 60. So you had all those demographics, and it was a short book. It's only 22,000 words. You can read it, in less than 2 hours.
Now, was it healing or was it painful for you, or both, to relive that?
It's weird because it's like being a firefighter. Like I had a friend yesterday. He's supposed to be working on my house, and I get toned out. He's not at my house. He's in a car crash, and I know this. He's a friend, And sometimes when I do my job, you kind of like flip a switch. It's you kind of do that. So I'm always thinking about the character and being true to that character. But I wouldn't say it was healing per se, because a couple of years ago they had me write the screenplay for the possible movie, and I hadn't picked up A Child Called It, in over 10 years. Because once I'm done with a project, I'm done with that project. I don't want to look back, because you don't want to stain what you're doing forward. You want to, if you pick up a new instrument, you're moving forward with that. And it was very difficult to read, because I'm in my mid 50s at the time, or early 50s. And you're thinking, my gosh, because that's the thing, when you're a kid, you survive, and then you want to break away. You want to do your own thing, and then you fall in love and get married, and, you become your father, your mother. And then, you reach your mid 50s, and it's like, how many summers do I have left? And the one thing that's taught me as a firefighter is, you can fall, just fall. And I may have to call a helicopter to fly you out for a simple fall, because anything can happen. And you're always thinking about, okay, how many more summers again do I have left? What do I want to do? The bucket list thing. So your body goes through these mental changes. And that's why I have to say I was so lucky, because here's the truth. I should have ended up in jail. I should have been a terrorist. I should have been a very, very bad person. And I would have every excuse to do so. And that's why I tell people, again, that divorce thing or someone did you wrong, you just kind of have to, especially if you're my age, don't go there. Because that's going to take up 2 to 5 years of your life, all that pain and anguish and suffering, or I'm going to get that guy, I'm going to show them. And what you're never going to get out of it, what you think you deserve, or maybe what you do deserve. So sometimes you have to just, you got to write it off.
Well,
you got to write it off.
And there's a saying I love, I don't know who said it, but the best revenge is a life well lived.
Oh, yeah. Debbie, I've never said this before, but I have certainly pissed off a lot of people. I had a gentleman who wrote a very, very bad article on me. He thought I somehow manipulated my book sales so I can stay on the list, or the awards I had weren't true and I somehow just got them, or everything I did was somehow manipulated. And all I can do is smile at the guy, because at the end of the day, I know in my heart what is true. And when people who are very, very sad, whatever, that's their side of the street. And that's what I have to do too. I have to keep, when I work with people in program, alcoholics and so forth, it doesn't matter what that other person's doing. Just work on your side of the street. And I have a program. I try to do 3 nice things a day. I try to make people laugh 3 times a day, and I do take time now that I'm in my late 50s. I do 3 things for myself. I might have a glass of wine. I might have a cup of coffee. I might just read a book for a few minutes, but, I make time for me, and you want to be consistent in these things, and I've again have made a lot of people upset. Why are you so happy? Why are you so nice? Sorry, sir. I don't know what to tell you. Some people, they get it, but they don't want to get it. And that's their business.
That's their struggle. So, Dave, what would you, if you had to say the most powerful lessons you learned because of your experience?
Be happy.
Be happy.
I'll never forget, I did a book signing. And when I would do book signings, I talk about behind the scenes of the book or the publishing, or thanking people for, the book and so forth, the letters. And I had this one guy, and you can tell he's the center of attention, and he's overly crying and overly emotional. And, oh my God, me, and me too. And questions, please. Mr. Pelzer, I too was abused. I too am a victim. So everybody's looking at him. Once my father yelled at me once for 10 seconds, and it's really destroyed my life. He's been dead for 30 years, but he's still screwing me over. What do I do? And 1 word, 2 words. What do I do to change my life? And inside I'm going, Clint Eastwood, grow up. But you can't really say that. So I said, be happy. Mr. Pelzer, give me 3 words that will change my life. Be happy now. 4 words, Mr. Pelzer. Be happy now, damn it. See, I've had fun at war zones.
Yeah.
I fought the Tubbs fire. In Santa Rosa, we lost 5,800 homes in less than 3 hours. Oh my God. And by the way, the firefighters didn't really do all that much. It was the police officers that went door to door at 1 o'clock in the morning to get those people out. I had fun at the Tubbs fire. I'm a weird guy. I'm very snarky. I once made Robin Williams spot himself. And that's pretty hard to do for Mr. Williams, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, to make him laugh like that. But, I think no matter what you're doing in life, you just want to be happy. It doesn't matter. Think about it. Our best memories as young lovers, as a young couple, is when we're dead broke, living in a crappy motel apartment studio, and we got leftover Chinese food. Money might make you happier, but if you're happy with yourself at size 16, you'll be happier when you're a size 10 or whatever. If you're happy with the car you have now, and now you trade up, you're going to be happier. Because we see this all the time. People who win the lotto, 93% of these people are broke in 7 years, and they're miserable. Why they have the money? You look at the Hollywood fame game. It's never enough. So in anything you do in life, do it work the program day by day. Do it, study 5 minutes a day, save $1 a day, walk 20 minutes a day, something, but be happy in your work.
Just day by day. Dave, what do you want to make sure everyone knows before we wrap up?
Life's a blessing. I love movies. What is it? Sometimes you got to keep the faith, because you never know what the tide's going to bring in the next day. I think Tom Hanks said that in the movie castaway. You got to keep the faith because you never know what the tide's going to bring in the next day. Or in the course of a life, one never knows what events may transpire. And if you're going through a bad time right now, it's only for the now. Tomorrow's another day, and just, do what you can to, get by today. And if you're going through a good time, you got to get ready for those bad times. So enjoy the good while you have it.
It sounds, listening to you, it sounds so practical, that's all you have to do. But and you're so right.
I don't like these professional motivational speakers who have a certain answer and they never give it to you. Life should be practical. Life should be like a golf lesson. Keep your butt up, keep your chin down, and swing away. It doesn't have to be that arduous.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Dave, this has been such a thrill. I know you inspired so many people. I mean, this is a story of resilience and resolve and just making such a wonderful opportunity, just creating such a wonderful opportunity with your own experience. I just want to thank you for your wisdom that you shared.
And I want to thank you, Debbie, for what you're doing, and thank your audience members for taking the time to listen to this, because this is important stuff.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Now, where can we learn more about you? Besides every single person listening, you need to read A Child Called It. In addition to that, where do we learn more about you?
Well, I know we have a website. I think it's just davepelzer.com. I'm kind of like the most obtuse person in the world. So we again, keep it practical, keep it simple.
Beautiful. Dave, again, thank you so much for sharing your time, your wisdom, your insights with us. We gained so much from listening to you today.
You bet. God bless you all.
Wow. Dave dropped so many truth bombs, I'm speechless. And one thing he said will become my new mantra: be happy now. Seems so simple, yet when you decide to make it a practice, you can heal from just about anything. Stay in touch with Dave by going to davepelzer.com, and we'll have all of his information in the show notes at pbtinstitute.com/podcast. Here's my biggest takeaway: hurt people. And just because someone is doing hateful, harmful, or hurtful things, it doesn't mean you're bad, unlovable, or unworthy. Remove yourself from the situation as best you can, and when you can, get the help you need. As Dave said, taking it day by day. I'm so inspired by Dave, and I'm also going to keep in mind something else he said. How many summers do you have left? Wow. That's powerful. We don't know how much time we have, so the key is to make these moments count, and that means getting as healthy, happy, and healed as you can. So let's start by seeing what physical, mental, or emotional symptoms are hanging around in the wake of your betrayal. Head over to pbtinstitute.com/quiz to see to what extent you may be struggling with post-betrayal syndrome. And let us support you. Go to Facebook and join our group, Women Hacking Betrayal, where we give information, tools, and support to help you move forward and heal once and for all. Can't wait to be with you next time, and here's to your breakthrough.